as long as there is growth to be had that is somewhat organic, then it's fine to focus on the best user experience possible without thinking too much about optimizing for juicing your key metrics, as opposed to just having noble ideas of great user experience. But as soon as you kind of, like Netflix ran into this challenge, and this is where you start seeing things like the password sharing crackdown and things like that, and this affected the industry on the whole, I guess it was almost 3 years ago now, where Netflix for the first time had, they reported their quarterly numbers and they had lost subscribers for the first time ever that quarter. And that sort of kicked off the whole industry-wide freak out about focusing on revenue and profit, not just subscriber growth, because everyone had been juicing that, taking it back to our earlier conversation, by including it in your Verizon account, including it in your Revolut and everywhere else. Right. And Wall Street kind of caught on to that and freaked out a little bit.
I remember that. I remember that window of time very, very well, where the whole market turned on its head. Netflix price plummeted. There was existential questions being asked across the entire industry, and look where Netflix is now.
It pivoted, and I think a lot of the advertising growth, which has had a lot to do with the sports focus in the industry, has been about not just looking at that subscriber number, but looking at that revenue number, and particularly sort of the ARPU, or like the average revenue per user, became the metrics that services started to look at with more intent internally. Like, certainly we were monitoring that constantly at Paramount Plus of like, should we be more pushing people towards our premium ad-free tier, or should we push them towards that cheaper tier that includes ads? Because depending on the season of the year or whatever we're tracking, sometimes that ads plus the smaller subscription fee is actually more average revenue per user than that premium ad-free plan. So people are constantly looking to optimize that. But the reason, I brought that up in the context of this user experience question is because, once you get to a certain level where you're not going to get, like, everybody in America has heard of Netflix at this point. It's not a question of identifying net new people who have never had Netflix. It's about deriving more revenue from the existing population of people out there who know about it all. And that's just an optimization game. And a lot of that is this recommendation stuff. But, what ends up happening, and this is often a subject of fierce debate internally at companies, especially between the user experience and design folks, is when you do things in the product that seem like they're kind of anti-user in a way. Like, a good example of this is the continue watching or resume watching row that every service has, right? Yeah. I think most people that I talk to, what they would prefer is that is the number one row on their homepage all the time, and they don't have to go looking for it. Because from an end user perspective, you're trying to get in there and get into a piece of content and stop fiddling with your remote as soon as possible. But there's a bunch of A/B tests that you've been running that show that if you push that thing down to row number 5 and you force them to be exposed to the content you want to recommend in rows 1 through 4, the numbers bear out that person ends up watching more average minutes watched of content per month than somebody you didn't do that to. And so you end up in this thing where the priorities are a little bit mixed there of what the user ostensibly wants versus what is driving the business.